What's up guys, David here and welcome to the FitPro Daily. This week is all about copywriting and we're going to start it off with a guest interview with Christopher Burns coming on to share how to create your own email marketing machine. But before we do dive into today's guest interview, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, press pause, press subscribe, and then let's dive into today's guest interview. What's up guys, welcome to today's special guest interview. Today we have Chris all the way from Scotland, is it, with the accents I can hear?
Yes, it is Glasgow, Scotland.
Glasgow, Scotland. One of those places I've never actually ever been to. I've kind of driven around it and I went to Ben Nevis once, but that's the only time I've ever been to Scotland.
Okay. Well, you need to come up here sometime. It's pretty decent up here.
I'm guessing the weather's quite similar to what it's like here in Wales, always raining.
Yeah, we have that in common. Yeah, we don't get the best of weather, but cool. Good people and good crack. So, we make up for it.
So the other week we did have Catherine Reehorn come on to talk about copywriting, and I'm guessing this kind of conversation is going to kind of go on a similar flow, but what we're going to talk about is more about email marketing and how to really use the emails to make sales. Is that right?
Correct, yeah. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. But let's start with the key question I always ask everyone right at the start is, how did you get into the fitness industry?
So I was working in hospitality for about 8 years.
Yeah.
And was never going to be my full-time career. So I went and became a personal trainer. I went and get qualified as a personal trainer, worked as a PT, both online and one-to-one for just over 3 years. And then in 2019, I transitioned into being a full-time copywriter. And then in 2020, I started the agency, which I now run, which is a direct response copy agency, which still operates within the health and fitness industry, just on the other end of things, on the business end, instead of actually coaching people.
Cool. Okay. So just if you go back to your FitPro days, the days where you were training clients, who was it you decided to work with back then? Did you work with just everybody, or did you kind of like specialize in anything?
So I, obviously, like most people starting out, I worked with everybody. I actually had a tremendous harebrained scheme when I started that I was going to be the only mobile personal trainer in my local area. And I just decided that was going to bring me tons of clients and everybody was going to start chapping my door, and nobody did. So I quickly had to change, and then I went to work in a gym where I worked with general population clients. But then I started to specialise more down the performance route. So I worked with amateur athletes, mainly people that took their sport very seriously. And it ranged from distance runners to rugby players to football players, like all different manner of sports. But that was what I ended up niching down into within about maybe a year and a half of starting as a coach. So yeah, those were some good times coaching some great clients.
So, because this is quite of an interest for me then, this next question, you're working with quite a specialist type of audience. How did you go about finding prospects and leads in this audience then?
I just tailored my content specifically to those people, but I mainly focused on the pain points of the audience, which I suppose is something I'm sure Kath mentioned in a copywriting podcast, but it's a big point of marketing, I suppose. But just as a coach, not really knowing a great deal about marketing, any performance client I got, because I play rugby myself, so I had a good network in the rugby community, and I would just listen to what guys were saying at training and what they were struggling with in the gym and what they were struggling with on Saturdays or at training. And then I'd be like, okay, well, what can I do to solve that problem? I'd create some content around it, talk about it, and then I would get people coming to me asking me to actually coach them. So that's how I approached it.
It's difficult because all these questions are kind of going to overlap to what you're going to talk about in a minute anyway, with like the email stuff. But if we kind of go back to the content side of things, almost forgetting about the email stuff. So you were talking to prospects, so you were listening to what people were saying, and then you decided to create the content. What content were you actually creating?
Yeah, so it was a variety of things. It would mainly be around, what I found was, a lot of people were just training like bodybuilders or following more physique focused plans, just general hypertrophy plans that weren't necessarily making them faster, stronger, or better at their chosen sport. So I just began to super basic stuff, just like here's how you can tag on a power-based circuit at the start of your workout to increase your power, which then means, and I try to break it down and explain it to them, So for rugby players, this is going to make you more explosive in the tackle. This is going to, so I always related it back to what their sport was. So going away from rugby, if it was a distance runner, I would say strength training is important. It means it reduces your chance of getting niggles and injuries, which stop you from doing the thing that you need to do, which is running. So I always made it relate back to there. So it would just be a case of exercise demos and then making sure that they were really easily explained. So a lot of video content and video slides on Instagram, stuff like that. And I would save it to my highlights and I would always refer back to it in my stories. And then I would do, one thing that worked very well was doing a Q&A and then saying, what are you struggling with in your performance-based training? Drop it in here. And I would do video responses, tag them in my stories, send them the videos and DMs, and then that would start a conversation as well.
Okay, so I'm guessing it was going really well. Your fitness business was doing quite well. What was it that suddenly made you decide, you know what, I'm really enjoying writing content. Let's kind of step away from that type of thing and move and almost like change almost industries or change really massively your target audience?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it was I was writing from quite early on when I became a coach because when you first become a coach, you're just looking for any way that you can get attention and get traction in the industry. And I thought, well, I've always been kind of decent at writing. I'll write articles. So I started writing articles, obviously on blogs like Breaking Muscle and a few other kind of fairly decent blogs in the industry. And then I just got to a stage where I was absolutely loving the writing side of things. And I looked at where I was spending my free time and I always used to plug in like self-development time in my calendar, like work on my skills. And gradually over time, I was spending more time working on my writing skills than I was maybe reading up on, periodization or anything else to do with actually being a coach, which sounds bad. It was still obviously keep on top of those things. It's just like my priorities were leaning more towards becoming a better writer. And then I found the world of copywriting and marketing, which is obviously very different from writing blogs. And I just kind of fell in love with it. And I was like, this gives me the lifestyle I want more than anything. More flexibility, not being tied to location, working in a gym and things like that. So for me, it ticked all the boxes, and then I pulled the trigger in 2019 and completely left the coaching business for good.
Cool. So let's dive into the topic. And the topic is how to build your very own email marketing machine, correct? Before we started this call, you said something that was quite interesting, like anybody would set up an Instagram account or Twitter account or set up a Facebook page, but not a lot of people would set up an email account right away on email marketing series right away. Why do you think that is?
I believe it's because of the misconceptions around email and what the platform really is. There are maybe slightly more barriers in place to email. It's way more personal. You're sending it to people's inboxes, so nobody sees like each other's emails, like whereas you can be in each other's news feeds, and it's called social media. So, excuse me, we're a lot more familiar with that platform. It's a lot more intuitive. Whereas, and I think because the platform, when it comes to email, people automatically think it's very formal because they're used to email in a work capacity, or maybe from like a higher education capacity where you're writing very, very formally and and they think, oh, well, that's not what I want to do, when the reality is very, very different. It's the most intimate platform that you can possibly connect with your audience on. And it's a platform where you can write however you want. Like you write conversational tone, and you deliver like outstanding value on that platform. So I think that a lot of it is just misconceptions and a lot of myths around what the email platform actually is.
Cool. Okay. So I put into Google now email marketing or email software and stuff, and I'm guessing there's gonna be loads of different options out there. Yeah. MailChimp, Aweber, ActiveCampaign, Infusionsoft, Ontraport, just to name a few. Yeah. If I was a complete beginner and or I've kind of done some of this stuff before, but I need to get back into it now? Is there kind of like a one go-to piece of software that you'd recommend?
I always recommend ActiveCampaign, purely because ActiveCampaign is the first of all, there's no best platform. They all have their own little faults. ActiveCampaign is, for me, it's the best platform because it scales the best. So as your business grows and your list grows, you can build some really cool stuff on there very easily. I'm not a super tech person at all, but ActiveCampaign makes it really easy to take advantage of all the really cool technical stuff. MailChimp is decent. You can get started. I would say you could probably get started on MailChimp quicker because it's not maybe got the same learning curve as ActiveCampaign, even though ActiveCampaign is fairly simple. But long-term, MailChimp's quite limited, I would say, in a lot of things. So, but basically, either of those two and you're golden. They're also very, very reasonably priced as well. So you're talking a very small monthly investment for those platforms. And they give a coach everything a coach could possibly need to run an outstanding email marketing service for the business.
Yeah, definitely have to agree with ActiveCampaign. So we started off on MailChimp all the way back in the day, all those years ago. And then we
most people go
Aweber because everyone was talking about how great Aweber was, and Aweber was good, but then eventually moved across to ActiveCampaign, and it's just so much easier to use, so much easier to navigate. All the tags and all the other different stuff that makes it, like you say, super confusing. If you're not a technical person, it's just not there in ActiveCampaign. It's just so easy. So yeah, definitely agree with ActiveCampaign. Someone says they found MailerLite.
Oh yeah, I've heard of people using that. I've never used that as a client or myself at all, but I've heard of people using it.
Cool. So we jump on the internet, then we sign up to ActiveCampaign. We start our 30-day trial or whatever they offer. What is the first thing we do? Do we, no, I think the first question, how do we get people onto this email list initially?
So everybody, well, not everybody, sorry, most people have heard of a lead magnet. Most people have engaged with a lead magnet, might not know what it's called, but it's basically a free offer. You put your email address in and you get a free guide or whatever the offer is. Now, as much as that's important, you don't need that in place right away. I feel like that's another barrier. People think that, I need to have this super glossy PDF linked up and downloaded. You don't, you can just convert your social media audience into your email audience. Because if you have a good engagement with your social media audience, you can literally just use your stories and say, pop your email in the box. I'm going to be giving out the only thing you need to remember here is you need to give them a reason for signing up to your emails. Remember, people are quite numb to the idea of emails, so you need to give them a real incentive, like tell them what's in it for them. So you position it as, I'm going to be giving a most in-depth value-packed content on email that allows me to really get into the weeds and give you the information you need to achieve X, Y, and Z, whatever your niche care about. So give them those reasons in your content and then just add them manually. Like I say that, I'm still building my list manually and I do this for a living. I just get email addresses, off of my social media when people interact with my content. And you can start there and you can build up a really healthy list, like just from doing that. And then the next step after that would be actually building out some kind of lead magnet, which people would then opt into to get the lead magnet. You get their email address, and then you can then start sending them regular emails.
Cool. Yeah. No, that makes total sense. Like you say, I think something that's put a lot of people off is when you create an ebook and you're giving it away for free, you then feel like you need to create some sort of follow-up series, but which we'll get into later, and that kind of then puts people off because it's more work and more work and more work, and you just don't get it done.
Yeah. I mean, if I just quickly on that, I think that one of the easier ways to, and actually helps your email marketing as well, is to not go down the ebook route, even though that can be very successful, and I've done it for clients and it has been very successful. But if you're a coach and you're doing it yourself, take whatever content you were going to put in the ebook and split it up over 3 emails and refer to it as a mini course, or give it another name, basically, because what that does is it actually gets people going to their inbox every single day looking through your email. So you're training them to go to their inbox. Email 1 on how to set up a fat loss diet is today, and tomorrow it's email 2 You see how that works very, very well. And this is maybe slightly technical, but from the email standpoint, your inbox is then talking. So your client, your subscriber's inbox is then talking to your email service provider and saying, yeah, this is a friendly email. We'll put this in the inbox. We won't put it in junk. So it ticks all the boxes, and it means all you're doing is you can literally make that in a Google Doc in a couple of hours. So that's something to think about if you're stuck on the whole creating a glossy ebook and going on Canva or try to hire a graphic designer on Fiverr. You don't need to do that. You can just put it all in email form and build it out over an automation over 3 to 5 days.
So it was about 2 years ago now when this 4-letter word came out and everyone was freaking out about what they were going to do with their emails and stuff. Do we really need to consider GDPR, or is that just another con to get some more money off you?
It was kind of like, I don't know if people are old enough, but it's kind of like the Millennium Bug. It's kind of like all of those things, it was one of these things that was built up and built up and built up, and then nothing really happened. A lot of people made a quick buck off it of being GDPR experts though, but yeah, that's another story. No, I don't see, I run several email lists. I've never seen an issue with any kind of GDPR stuff at all. And these email lists are based in different countries and all over the world and stuff. And I've never seen an issue, mate. So I don't see that being, I wouldn't spend a second thinking about that, to be honest.
Yeah. So basically what you're saying though is, if you're telling people why they should give you their email address, what's going to happen with their email address, and that's you covered, really. You don't need to go any crazy or build anything else for it.
Yep, and as long as you have a clear unsubscribe button on every email, which is basically built into every single template. I also recommend, just a very quick tip, on the first email you send somebody, if you have a welcome email set up, so let's say if somebody signs up and then you've got a welcome email, I always recommend telling people to unsubscribe. Tell them to unsubscribe. Say, listen, if you don't want to receive great tips in your inbox every week, really insightful stories from my time as a coach and what you can learn from them, then I would just go ahead and unsubscribe now, because that's what I'm going to be sending you. So you see how that works, that kind of reverse psychology, because then they go, well, I do want to hear that, and then they stay as a subscriber. But you've also complied and said, listen, I've literally told you how to unsubscribe. I've literally said it in the email. So that's a fun way to play with that and write a really impactful email at the same time.
But I don't have a lot of time. It's just easier for me to post on Facebook or Instagram. Why should I be doing email if I'm already doing Facebook and Instagram?
You should be doing it because it's more of a responsible business decision. I would say long term. I understand it's slightly more of a time commitment, but it's not as much of a time commitment as people think, because the content you post on Facebook or Instagram can be repurposed for an email. You maybe just have to go maybe a little bit more in depth, but it can certainly apply to both platforms. And longer term, if you think about it in terms of, you are not in control of your social media. Your account can be, your engagement can be dropped. You are kind of at the mercy of Instagram HQ or Facebook HQ. You don't have that much control over it. But email, you do. You control everything there. You can say what you want, do what you want, launch what you want. Everything is entirely on you. So from a business perspective, and obviously making sales and having more of an impact on the people that you want to help, it really is a no-brainer. And if you think about it in those terms, I think I totally understand what you're saying, because I hear that a lot, and I think it's because people don't see the payoff right away. I think that's the issue. On Facebook or Instagram, they get likes, they get comments, they get DMs, and it's that instant dopamine hit. I'm not going to sell you a lie here that email marketing is more of a longer-term play, but every single person I've told to start an email list has taken months and months to do it. And then every single one of them says, I wish I'd done this months ago when you told me. So yeah, that's what I would say to people who have that objection, which I completely understand why they do have it.
Okay, so I've now got ActiveCampaign. I've started getting these email addresses from prospects and people who have shown interest, and I realize it's important for me to do emails as well as social media. But how many emails a week should I be doing, or is it a monthly thing, or how often do you email?
Yeah, so I always recommend people start out with twice per week. And the reason I say that is because it gives good balance between the two kind of main types of emails. One, I would say, is very much value-based, so on the topics that your audience care about. And then the other one is more like story-based, which is always going to link back to obviously a piece of content that's valuable. But the story-based one can be a personal story, a client story. It can be something from like popular culture, a bit more free rein there. And then that gets you into that cadence and practice of writing two slightly different types of emails. What can also help, we do this for a lot of our clients, is we have either a weekly or a monthly digest style email. So for one of our clients, the monthly digest, and then we break down it's like what books are the team reading, what we're watching on TV, what are PRs this month, like all of these kind of info magazine style bullet points. And that can work really well because then you have set sections for every single one of those emails. So that's another style of email that you can work in if you feel your audience will get some value from that. But generally speaking, I would start out with two per week, and that's a nice, easy, low commitment to get you started.
Yeah, and I think that is kind of like the biggest thing, the low commitment thing, especially if it's someone new coming into it and they're like, yeah, Chris, I want to do 7 emails a week. I've got this. And you're buzzing for the first 3 or 4 days. And then a client is not doing very well and you've got to sit with them for a little bit longer after a session. Your email time is gone. And then tomorrow you're struggling and 2 weeks later, you haven't written an email for almost 2 weeks now. So I'm guessing like you said, make it easy for you to get started and then enjoy it from there.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you've just said there is a really good point. Is this shouldn't take away from you being a coach. You're still a coach, you're not a full-time email marketer like I am. So if you're writing your own emails, it's just fantastic. It should always fit into whatever your schedule is in terms of coaching and doing the other things. And it should also be fun and enjoyable because you really like let rip on emails and have some real fun with it and really show even more of your personality. So yeah, make sure it's a low commitment thing and don't because I made the mistake when I was a coach, when I started looking into the marketing world. You hear about a lot, you've probably heard it as well, dude. It's like daily email. Oh, I send out an email list every single day and I make X amount off that list. So you've got to understand these people from another world. It's another industry. I genuinely believe very little applies to the coaching world from that whole direct response, kind of, full on marketing world. So I would be very wary of following that advice and just do what's right for you. And it should never feel like intimidating to sit down and write an email because, like you see, you're thinking, I said I would send 4 emails a week and I've got to write 4 and I can have the right one. Don't make it easy for yourself,
Yeah, I think that's a key point there about what you just said. I had this conversation with somebody a while back and they were like, oh yeah, I've subscribed to this guy's email marketing course. And he was saying on the launch of this course, he made like 5 or 6 figures or something. Let's just say 10K from the sale of this course. I was like, great, yeah. But this guy, remember, probably has 200,000 people on his email account. He probably emailed for the last 5 or 6 years. You're not going to get the same response in the first week of purchasing this course off the guy. Yeah? You have to sometimes take a look and see where they've come from, the length of time, the amount of people they have. And you're in a different situation, so build it up. So we're ready to write this email now. I know how to do a Instagram story, easy peasy. Sometimes I can get away with some really dodgy Facebook posts. But how do you write an email newsletter or email? Is it like proper sentences? Can I swear? Is it short sentences? Should it be really long? Should they be short? Or can you just do whatever you feel like doing?
So I would say, yes, you can do whatever you feel like doing in terms of the topic and what you wish to talk about. But there's some basic rules just to keep you right, so that, because the first thing is you want people to actually read your email. And that sounds very obvious and it's not meant to sound patronizing at all, but keep that in mind because that will keep you right as you actually create an email, because then you can go back and say, would I read this? So if you think about your own behaviour when you look at an email or anything like that, if you see a big massive block of text, you switch off quite quickly. You do, I do it as well. It's just the way we're programmed, and you go, I'm not reading that. You'll maybe scan it at most. And if you've got a really valuable point buried in amongst this big paragraph, people are missing out. So I would say keep the sentences really short and punchy. Basically, Forget every single thing you've ever been told about writing from your high school teachers, from your university lecturers, because it doesn't apply to this world. This is conversational writing to actually connect with people. So really short, punchy sentences. I don't really go more than 2 lines, and that's within a Google Doc. 2 lines is maximum what I would write before I take a new line. Make it really spaced out, make the text nice and big, and stick with that format, and then that'll keep you right. It's going to feel weird at first if you're not used to it, I understand, but trust me, that those are the emails that get read. Emails dropping into people's inboxes that are big, massive, long paragraphs just get moved to junk straight away, which is a shame because I spent time creating this email. It's probably got a lot of great things to say, but it just doesn't look appealing enough for people to actually read it. So that's the first thing I would say about structure. But in terms of actually writing the email, and again, this is going to sound very basic, decide what you're going to write before you even open your laptop, because there's nothing worse than sitting with that cursor blinking at you constantly, just reminding you of how you can't start and you don't know what to say, and it's just always there, and you just don't, and then you type something and you delete it, and you type something again, you delete it. So have a think, okay, what have people been asking me this week? What have clients asked me? What DMs have I been getting? You know, what problems have I seen arise in my niche? Like, you know, what has there been some kind of, you know, scandal on Instagram in the fitness industry about a new product or whatever it might be that my audience need to know about? So yeah, have a think before you actually start typing, and then think about what is the one thing I want my audience to take away from this email. What is the one, if I could only say one thing, what would I say? Okay, I've got it in my head now. So that's the point you're trying to make. And then hopefully, that should set you up in good stead for when you actually start writing the email. Does that make sense? That
makes total sense. So you're getting good, you're quite comfortable with writing the email, but we all know it's the headline, the subject line that starts the whole process off. Is there a magic formula to creating subject lines that make people want to click and actually read through it?
So the subject lines, yeah, I'm really glad you asked that, because I like to keep things this simple when I coach people on this stuff. Just think, but one thing with subject lines: curiosity. That's it. Just think about how can I make this as curious as possible, and what that means is think clickbait, but not full on clickbait. You're obviously not going to use actual clickbait practices, because that's how you annoy your audience. But if you think about, see all those crappy articles that you see on the side of Facebook articles and things like that, and it's like, you won't believe what this celebrity looks like at 45 years old, and then you click it and you click another one, you click another one. So that's really curious and really tapping into that emotion, and that's why you click it. So think, how can I inject some curiosity into this subject line? And you won't go wrong with that, because remember, the only job of a subject line is to get your email opened. That's it. It's one job, one emotion. The job's to get your email opened. The emotion is curiosity. So if you can do those 2 things, you'll be onto a winner. And no, there's no magic formula. I would say though, if I can very, very quickly, your subject line is more than just your subject line. Most email providers have a subheadline as well, and that's the little bit of preview text that people can use, that people see, when it comes through on their phone. So make sure you use that as well. Don't leave that blank. Make sure you inject even more curiosity in there. So let's say off the top of my head, you would say something like, can you lose fat and drink beer? ? And then the subheadline could be, my client did, and here's how he did it, ... And then see how that's a combination of curiosity and getting the email open. And you can also play around with your from name. I use that a lot in my email marketing. It's really powerful. So my name's Chris Burns. For that email that I just broke down there, I could not send it from Chris Burns, I could send it from Chris Beers. So you can see how you can change that and mess around with it a little bit to just get really creative.
Is there anything that should we go with our name or business name?
Always with your name. You're sending to people, yeah, always with your name. And don't send it from your email address or anything like that. Send it from your actual name, just so that's clear.
Yeah. So is there a specific number we should be aiming for when it comes to open rates then? Is there a kind of like an industry number that shows you're doing okay, you're doing well with these headlines and emails?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is all very specific to the size of the lists and things like that. I think when you're starting out, you're going to get pretty high open rates because your list is going to maybe have like 30, 40, 50 people, like if you're starting from like absolute scratch. I would say if you've got a decent sized list, and I'm classified decent size as between anywhere above 500 people on your list, you should be looking at above 20% for your open rates there. If it drops below 10%, that tells you you've landed in people's junk mail, and there's something in that email that shouldn't be there. Typically, that's a lot of images, a lot of HTML stuff. Your email should just be a plain text if it's been sent from a Gmail or a Hotmail. Like, don't get fancy with images and lots of other bits and pieces, because all the email providers out there, especially Gmail, are very sophisticated, and they pick that up and they say this is a crappy marketing email, and they put it into their promotion, into your promotions tab. But yeah, I would say if you're doing anywhere above 20%, then you're doing well. You're doing very, very well.
So one question I see pop up a lot, I get a lot of people are unsubscribing from my list. Should that be taken as a compliment, or does that mean you actually are writing bad stuff?
Well, it could mean you're writing bad stuff, but generally speaking, I would say no. People are always going to unsubscribe, and that's fine, because what you have to bear in mind, if you are sending emails that are on brand, value packed, and you put time into them, and they really reflect like who you are as a coach and what you stand for, if somebody unsubscribes from those emails, then that's fine. They were never going to be a client, and you never really know. Maybe they're just like really trying to reduce their inbox. Maybe they use it for work, and they're just like, I know these emails are great, but I need to get to inbox 0 or whatever, you know. So don't take it too personally. I actually view unsubscribes as a good thing for the most part, as long as they're not ridiculous, because it means that the people that are on your list actually want to be there, and the people who don't want to be there are opting out, and that means that can only be a good thing, in my opinion. So don't get too hung up on that if you're a coach with your email list. It's not a bad thing.
Just let's go back to the inbox and not spam thing. I know we kind of touched on it a minute ago. Is there any other tips to try and make sure we don't land in the spam? So I know you said no images, try not to put any videos and stuff like that, but is there any other real tips that kind of really do help us get into the inbox and not the spam?
Yeah, keep your subject lines just kind of plain text. Again, don't use lots of capitals, don't use lots of like exclamation marks all over the place, you know. Again, that'll be seen as spam. We move to promotions right away. And email providers really like emojis, you know, because bots can't really use emojis in their emails. So if you put emojis in there, it's more likely to come from a human. So again, that'll probably land you in the main inbox. And also, don't use things like, you see, if you use terms like, I could go on about this all day, but basically the cure for fat loss, that's a no-go. See sensational titles like that. So think about that, you know, really sensational, super clickbaity things, you know, those horrible like supplement headlines that you hear horror stories about, like, oh, I cured X disease with this one pill. Like, all of those types of things are never, ever, ever going to make it into somebody's inbox. And you'll just and then the thing is, you'll probably always be moved into promotions after that, because they really frown upon that behaviour. So yeah, those are the things that I would say definitely will keep you. And also remember that a lot of email providers look at the first bit of your actual email as well, not just your subject line. So make sure that's compliant as well. You're not making sensational claims, and you're not, I mean, I don't see how anybody listening to this could do that. These are for, just see those really horrible spammy marketing emails that you get, which we all know about. Make sure your emails look nothing like them, and you'll be good.
So is it true then that if you land in someone's junk, or someone unsubscribes, or someone says this email's bad, you get a red flag above your name and that's it, you're snookered for life? Or is it just now and again you might end up in junk, and then sometimes you might end up in the inbox and stuff?
Yeah, I would say it's more now and again. There's some people out there that it's more to do with, like, they just use dodgy practices to get people's email lists, and they're just doing all kinds of kind of underhand tactics to get their emails opened and stuff like that, which is something that nobody's going to be doing that everybody's going to be above board. But yeah, you can end up with a red flag, and then you're it's hard to get out of that. But for most people, you're just going to go between, well, the odd one might land in promotions for whatever reason. The one way you can test it, and this is if you really want to kind of take it to another level, is you set up a couple of dummy inboxes. So you just set up like test@gmail.com, and you can send your email to that email address before you send it to your list, and then you can see where it lands. Does it land in promotion? And then if it lands in promotions, you go, okay, I'll change the subject line, I'll change this, I'll change that, and then until it lands in the inbox. So that's one way you can go about it.
Okay, so we've got the headline, we've got the well-written email, it's kind of like in our frame of mind, but we've got a 6-week program that we want to sell. How do we put call to actions in email that don't look massively salesy, or it just doesn't go with the email itself? You've written a really good email, it's like, oh, actually come and join my 6-week program, and they don't match. Is there a specific way of writing a call to action into your flow of an email to make people want to take action?
Yeah, I would say that people struggle with this the most. Obviously calling people because they feel like, oh, it feels a bit salesy, or whatever terms they use. And it's all about how you transition from the value piece in your email into the call to action section. Now, if you do that well, I always advise people to be direct about that. Tell people that, yep, I've got a 6-week program, and here's where you go to sign up, and here's everything you get when you sign up, and all the benefits of, your 6-week program. Because it's important, because if you've put time and effort into this, then you should be selling it, because it can help people. But I understand that say you're telling a story, and you've got a really well written email, and it's on a particular topic, say it's on fat loss, and you're using some kind of analogy, like, for example, in a recent launch for a client, I used Indiana Jones as the story topic for the email, okay? And I used, in particular, the scene in Indiana Jones when he's standing at the bridge in the Temple of Doom, he's running across the bridge, okay? You don't need to do any more than that, but that was the story. And then slowly so that the point of the story was, it's hard to cross a rickety bridge. You're going to fall, you're going to hurt yourself. But what if it was easier? What if that bridge was smooth? What if it was strong? What if it was sturdy? And then you say, this is a lot like your fat loss journey. You can go through fad diets, and that's the rickety bridge, or you can choose this, and that's a smooth, easy transition to your goals. So I know it's hard to get across me explaining it. I promise it sounded better in the email, but you can see how that then transitions into talking about an actual solution to somebody's pain point. So I think that if you manage that transition well, then always remember, it is a call to action. You don't have to be subtle about it, and being direct doesn't make you salesy, or it doesn't mean you're using high pressure tactics. Remember, some people really do need to be told in black and white, go here and sign up now. So don't try to get too cute about like what the actual link text says or anything like that. More so, make sure that the email is a high quality email, and it speaks to like a pain point and covers the benefits of what you're trying to sell, and then transition into your call to action and make your call to action direct. There's nothing wrong with that.
Cool. Okay. So something I've noticed, and this is for me, and I'm probably not a lot of people have noticed this either. Do you still get charged for unsubscribed people in things like Aweber and Active Campaign and all that?
You don't in Active Campaign anymore. That was an issue. Now I only use, so our agency uses Active Campaign, MailChimp, and Klaviyo. They're the 3 platforms we use. Can't speak for any outside of those 3, but you don't get charged for unsubscribes in any of those platforms. I know that used to be an issue, but not anymore.
You go into your unsubscribe and it's like 2,000 there, and you realize you're still paying for these 2,000 people, even though they're not even getting the emails.
No, oh man, it's a nightmare.
So to finish then, is there any final tips or tricks or ideas or anything you want to say on building your very own email marketing machine?
Yeah, I think that the one thing I want to get across is start the email list. It doesn't matter how many people are on it. It doesn't matter how bad you think your emails are. You just need to start. Think about yourself. What would you tell a client that said to you, I'm going to get fit and then I'm going to come to you for coaching? You'd say, no, you come to me for coaching right now. That's how this works. The same with your email list. So I would encourage everybody listening to this, just get started as soon as you possibly can. The long-term growth of your business will benefit from it massively. So yeah, just start. There you go.
Appreciate it, Chris. So anybody listening or watching or however they're consuming this today, how can they find out a little bit more about you? What is it you actually do?
So you can find me on Instagram at Savage Scholar Chris, and I'll have a link in there hopefully this week to sign up to my email list. So yeah, you can find me on there. And I always say my DMs are a safe space for coaches. I don't have anything to sell you because I run an agency. So the only thing I have for you is advice. So if you do listen to this and you maybe have a specific question and you find me on Instagram, you can safely message me in the knowledge that I will not pitch you on anything. I will just give you actual advice and help you answer the questions that you need answered.
Chris, I appreciate your time today. And I'm guessing everybody watching this now is like, oh yeah, I might go and see what it's all about. Yeah, see if it's as easy as Chris makes it sound.
Yeah, hopefully they do, mate. Hopefully they do.
Appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on.
Cheers, mate. Cheerio.
That was Chris on creating your own email marketing machine. And as you can see from it, he's really passionate about this subject. So it's probably one of those episodes where you do want to go back to the start, watch it or listen to it all over again, take a load of notes and start actioning some of the things that Chris was talking about. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there for this week or for today. The rest of the week, we've got loads more stuff coming up on emails, on copywriting, and all that type of thing. But for now, if you haven't already subscribed, press pause, press subscribe, and I'll speak to you all tomorrow. Cheers.